Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new installment of the Energica Electrifying Podcast. This is your host, EVJ Val. And after a week break, we are back with the 10th episode of the series, a little milestone for Energica, the single manufacturer of the FIM NL Moto E World Cup. News about the start of MotoGP and Moto E are imminent, so we cannot wait to hear more about when we'll be able to see our beloved Energica Ego Corsa machines back on track. In the meantime, we would like to introduce to you our guest for today. He's at his second year in Moto E after countless seasons in World Championship, and he is a prominent figure in motorcycle racing. From Oxford, England, racing with number 38 for the WithU Motorsport team, his name, Bradley Smith. Hello there.
Hey mate, how are we doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Looking forward to seeing a calendar sometime soon. I don't know if you can tell me anything, but I have the feeling that we're gonna see it in a few hours. So fingers crossed.
I was actually told the same thing. It's a matter of whether it's a matter of hours, of days. It's soon gonna come out, and I assume you're very excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an awful long time. I think someone said it's been exactly 3 months today that we all left Jerez and basically was heading home. So 3 months that I haven't ridden a motorcycle, and 3 months I've been in exactly the same place, which I think is the first time since I was 15 years old. So I'm not used to any of this lifestyle. So as soon as I can go back to two wheels and travel life, the better.
Yeah, it's a really strange feeling to be, for example, especially for people like us, you as a rider, me as a worker in a paddock, to just be stuck somewhere. It's just a new feeling. I mean, you've been around the world since 2006,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah.
So so it's been it's a lifestyle. So it really changes dramatically the point of view. How's life in Andorra? You've been stuck in Andorra where you are, right?
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, having a great time. Just appreciating home life a little bit more, spending a lot of alone time because obviously you can't really interact. But that's opened up the last few months or a few weeks, sorry, and starting to see some people and a little bit of socializing again and seeing some familiar faces. So yeah, honestly, just nice to start to feel like we're getting back to a little bit of normality. I feel that we're still a long way away from actual normal reality, but it's going in the right direction, and certainly, yeah, feel optimistic and looking forward to. Actually, this weekend I'm heading to Italy and gonna go do a track day and start to ride a little bit, and then next week I should be riding the Aprilia MotoGP bike in Misano. So I'm getting there. I need you guys to bring me a bike, and then I can do some testing as well.
Well, yeah, you know how it works with onemake championships. Unfortunately, riders are not allowed to test the bike outside of races. But yeah, it's hopefully it will be soon enough. And thankfully, we were able at least to do a 3-day test. You know, that was right on the limit, which was kind of a bless and a curse because obviously now you knew the feeling and then you had to stay away from it.
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Well, I'm just glad that we had a chance to really evaluate. All the riders had a chance to evaluate the new pieces for this season. You know, obviously, Energica bringing the power and the battery cooling, the different compression in the front forks, and then Michelin bringing the tire as well. So I mean, even if we have to start from completely just start on a race weekend, I think that everyone has enough information now to start inside the championship. So we'll wait and see what happens.
what were the difference that kind of evident to you?
For me, the biggest thing was honestly the front fork compression setting, and that's mainly because the most important thing is that everything matches on the motorcycle. So you need a front spring and a front compression setting that matches the weight distribution of the bike. We just needed something that helped to support us a little bit more, especially in a racing situation, because you're braking late and you're trying to control the motorcycle as best you can. So I think that was an important step. And also Michelin as well, bringing the rear tire, because I think that was another thing where they brought us something that wasn't matching, again, the weight distribution, and then we had a couple of problems. So those two are important. From Energica's side, it's very difficult to analyze because we had such different weather. Like in the morning would be pretty cold and fresh, and by this afternoon sessions, it had already warmed up. We had over, I think, nearly 40-degree track temperature sometimes. So to be able to back the battery cooling and stuff was not so easy to see. A little bit from the power side, but it's the small details. But I think everything speaks for itself. Most riders improved 1.5 seconds from last season. So in 12 months, I think half of that is just familiarity, and the other thing is all the small pieces together combined is producing a more competitive package.
Were you surprised of seeing riders like Agata and Jordi Torres being so quick, like after 3 days?
Yes and no. At the end of the day, the bike it feels like a race bike. It's not like you have to learn a completely different strategy. And also another thing is, with Jordi, Sete Gibernau jumped off of his bike. If Sete Gibernau didn't know how to set up a motorcycle to get the team somewhere within the ballpark, I'd have been very surprised. So, Jordi's a very talented rider. He rides many different bikes, in his career, different manufacturers, different classes, different championships. So I think that allows him to adjust quite quickly. And as with Agata, he's been one of the top Moto2 riders for a number of years. The last couple of seasons seems to have been a little bit difficult for him, but yeah, I wasn't necessarily surprised there. And Jesko Raffin jumped off of his bike, and Jesko was a top 5, top 6 rider as well. So when you already jump onto a setup that is working generally, and then you fine-tune it during those 3 days with the weather that we had, it definitely makes a difference. I also, looking at the big picture, is there was a lot of riders that was fast in testing last season, or fast in practices, or fast in the e-pole. But actually, when it came to the race, we actually just saw that there was like 2 or 3 main guys that was there. So it's completely different on a race weekend. You turn up, you have 6 laps in FP1, 6 laps in FP2, and then pretty much you go to e-pole in the race. So let's see how they deal with that dynamic. 1 year's experience from my side should give me a little bit of a helping hand. But we're also talking about guys with tremendous talent. So we'll be a competitive championship this season.
Absolutely. So this period of lockdown for you, do you think it taught you anything? Did you change anything in your lifestyle, in your training preparation? Do you have time to do something you haven't done before in terms of preparation or focus mentally? Because it was a new thing for everybody, and there's a big motorcycle community in Andorra. I think somebody approached it the right way. Somebody kind of went a little bit crazy. It depends on the people. So, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I just had the opportunity to really kind of figure out what I want from the next few years of my career, and with not being so busy, because it's been crazy, honestly. Like when you're a full-time GP rider, like I was in 17 and 18, those last 2 seasons, especially on the project that I was on, I was doing so much development work and testing, as well as racing the full championship. I basically was never at home. You were just traveling and trying to recover so you're fresh to get back on the bike. And then also last season, with everything that I was up to with the wild cards with Aprilia, the Moto E, the test riding stuff. Then I went and jumped on the Moto 2 bike. I went and did some motocross races. I just kind of almost fill in my life, to keep myself busy, but not actually giving myself a time to kind of make a plan and see what I want, from the next couple of years. But during these 12 weeks, it's been able to sit down and kind of go, okay, what are my opportunities and what's the options that are out there, and how do I go about trying to achieve them? So just try to concentrate on that, try to be fitter and stronger, and kind of just use the time to be ready for when the opportunities come, and whether that's fighting for a World Cup title with WithU Motorsport, in the Moto E, or if that's fighting inside of the MotoGP World Championship. I still don't know what those options are available to me, so just trying to be ready for whatever lands on my table.
In motorsports, obviously, main classes right now, as they've always been multi-brand championship. But what's the role? Like Moto E, what's the role of one make championship in 2020? Has it evolved? You started your racing career at Aprilia Super Teens, if I'm not mistaken. Do you think one make championships still have a role in racing? Because, or how did they evolve through time?
I really like one make championships because it actually it sieves out the bullshit. Excuse my language, but I think now that there's so much smoke and mirrors in terms of, is this guy, can this guy be fast? Is this guy fast? Which bike is he riding? Who else is riding that bike? It's so difficult to actually see the true talent of some people, I think these one make championships, they still have their role. I'd like to see a one make championship and then see those guys kind of move up into world championships. So if we had a one make championship, a little bit like the Red Bull Rookies or the Honda Cup, but also in national championships, I think it's very important that there is some single make championships there, because how do we know who the real talent is and who's not just got good connection to big sponsor or a rich family, to bring them in? I like what is happening in Moto 3 nowadays, looking at the championship, looking at the rules and regulations that Dorna's put in place. I think that makes it very fair, and we see some great racing. Moto 2, I think, is still a little bit of a question mark at times, just because of the different budgets within the teams, who can buy the latest packages or the latest updates in a season. And honestly, MotoGP, it's just like, how do we know? Guys are on such different motorcycles, and it's so difficult to know who has potential and who doesn't. Or, I mean, the top guys will always stand out, and I don't think the top 3 or 4 guys would change. But I'm pretty sure if you put the next guy, so from 5th back to 15th on the same motorcycle, I think we'd actually see a couple of different changes. But that's motorsports, and I think in our championship we have something even better than car racing, because I think car racing is even worse for that. So I'm grateful for that. But definitely last season, I just loved turning up and going, okay, everyone's got the same bike. That guy did that lap time. Okay, well, how do I do that lap time? Because he did it, not the bike did it. They found a way with the setting or with the riding style or with something to make that happen. And, that's what I like. And basically it just means there's no excuses. There's it's black and white, and we go racing, and I really enjoyed that feeling. It was a breath of fresh air last season.
And also what I've noticed through time is that maybe in the past there was more of a midterm planning in terms of riders. They were riders were given a bit more chance to develop. And even if they didn't perform the first year, they will get another chance for a second year or the third year to actually perform if the team will believe in them. What I feel right now is that you get one chance, and if you blow it, then you're out. So I guess even the pressure to perform, especially for younger guys, is actually huge, because you got one chance and you have to perform straight away. Probably it's character building, but in racing you never know if you actually perform up to the level in the first try or not. You really need somebody to believe in you and keep believing you. And it's not easy nowadays with all this super accelerated world. You have to perform. You have to
Yeah,
deliver.
you're so right, and it's scary. Honestly, looking at the way that it goes, if it carries on with the current trend, I'm really worried that we're going to have, let's say 25-year-old riders basically with their careers not over, but certainly not on the upward trend, because if we keep on moving MotoGP riders earlier and earlier to MotoGP, they going to be on like 1 year contracts with an option. There's every opportunity that those guys don't make it in the first year or struggle in the first year. Someone else fits the bill better in the second year, and where do they go? At 25 years old, they've made it. Through all of these categories, they made it to MotoGP. They maybe even been a world champion in Moto2 or Moto3 at some point, and at 25 years old, they're kind of out on out looking for a job somewhere that's no longer MotoGP. And okay, there's other championships to go to, but it's certainly a little bit scary with the way that they're fast forwarding everything at the moment. But still, if you look at MotoGP, the most experienced guys, the older guys, they're still holding strong at the front. There's a couple of exceptions, but isn't there always? There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. But the older, more experienced are still holding strong in GP. So I hope that it doesn't change too much, and people understand that development and consistency and loyalness gets there in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you also have to take into account that, 16 years old, but even 23-year-old, we're talking about young people, and, the maturity process happens through time. So, it's not easy for a 16-year-old to go there out and perform, especially with the amount of pressure and the amount of pressure they put on themselves, obviously, because they have to carry a team to a win, and they have to back up the investment that a team has made on them. So yeah, it's quite a tricky thing, but I'm pretty.
But listen, can you imagine at 16 years old you get plucked out of your parents' house and basically sent around the world? Not even racing. Like, let's completely separate racing aside. You get sent on airplanes traveling around the world, to all these different countries, different time zones. Like that alone is already a tough thing to ask. Then let alone asking them to turn up against the best riders in the world, learn new tracks that they haven't done, have the expectation of countries and media and press and so on and so forth. Like you said, like it takes a few years to kind of settle in, gain that confidence, gain that maturity. And I think sometimes people forget that, we're human beings that ride motorcycles. We're not robots.
Absolutely. Now that makes me think about something. You're one of the most well-spoken and kind of intelligent guys that I've come across. No disrespect for the others, but you really seem to have the grasp of what's going on in everything. Have you ever thought about writing a book about motorsport in general?
I don't know. It's not something that not really something that I sat down and thought about. And to be honest, I don't know if there is I don't think there's a magic formula. There's certainly not a one-way fits all. But I think that, it's not something that I thought about. I'm just a racer at the moment. So while I can be a racer, I'm concentrating on that one. Don't sound me off. I'm not retired just yet, mate. I'm
No,
not
I
retired.
wasn't saying that. I wasn't saying that. No, absolutely. You can keep your diary and then later you can publish it. I don't know. It was just an idea, but you seem to have a deeper kind of understanding of things. And probably if you find a way to, just a suggestion or just a thought that came into my head, if you find, you know, on a psychological, I think you'll be able to describe what goes on in racing without, from a personal, from a rider point of view, more than other riders, because you seem to get what's happening in a very very detailed way. So no, don't worry, I haven't considered you retired. Otherwise, I wouldn't make this podcast with you today. So don't worry. You kind of turned into sort of Moto E ambassador last year. The way you talk to the media and the way you explain things as they are, people were really interested in seeing your point of view about Moto E, and from an Energica side, we really have to thank you because you kind of explained to the world that, you know, Moto E is racing and the bike is a racing bike. Do you like that sort of position you kind of put yourself in, even though I'm sure you don't recognize yourself as an ambassador of anything, but do you like to be the one explaining to the world that Moto E is actually racing?
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, and this is no disrespect to any of the journalists, but you know, most of those. Well, first and foremost, let's say 99% of journos inside that paddock have never touched an electric motorcycle or ridden an Energica bike. So they almost can't pass any judgment because, you know, they haven't been out there. Secondly, I find myself in a very fortunate position where I've ridden a lot of bikes now in my lifetime. So, you know, in the last 14, 15 years of my career, you know, I've ridden a lot of different bikes and, you know, different ideas, different concepts. And you guys did a fantastic job in terms of you took, you know, from the prototype team and everybody, and I said it from the word down, like the Energica engineers and the test riders that you used developed a very, very good package that when we turned up at Jerez for the very first test, I think everyone went, you know, thank God we signed up for this. You know, we all went into the unknown, completely blind faith, and went, okay, well, let's just see what this is going to be. And it could have turned out to be rubbish, but I think everyone just did the first day and looked at each other and went, this is going to be fun. And the more and more the season unveiled, the more races that we did, the more and more that championship just come alive. And I think you have to explain, you know, to some of these guys, because also I think that sometimes people don't like change. Humans just like a routine and they don't like change. And I think that's a psychological proven fact. So when something comes along, they dismiss it and they don't even give it a chance. And I'm also one of those type of people. But the more open-minded that you can be, the more surprised or more pleasantly surprised that you can potentially, you know, get in your lifetime. So Moto E Energica was a pleasant surprise. The more people that understood and watched it, the more people that actually just tuned in for the 12 minutes that we were on TV. I think everybody in the end was like, this is actually something interesting. This is something cool. And this is something that they can write about and talk about. And you guys deserve that through the package that you put out to the riders. You could have just gone, we're on onemake championship. They're only going to ride our bike. Let's just put something together half-assed and and put it out there. You're totally entitled to do that. Or if your technical knowledge as a company wasn't up there, then you could have done the best that you could have done and it still would have been rubbish. But clearly who you have working inside of your company, the guys that actually put their heads together and built that motorcycle, they know what they're doing and they did it with passion and knowledge, and they produce something that is on a very, very high level in a world championship, and that's great.
Yeah, I mean, the investment by Energica and Moto E was very big, considering even the size of the company. Well, Energica is not a big company, and also and also we're kind of out there, we cannot hide behind any curtain because that's us. So, we only do high performing premium motorcycles. So if we have to do a racing bike, it has to, that's what represents us to the rest of the world, while we try to expand our reach in terms of sales of actual road motorcycles. So we knew it had to be good, and I'm thankful, and I think my bosses are thankful that it's been well taken and appreciated.
Yeah,
So,
great.
If I say, if we're gonna race in Jerez in July, well, I say
Yes.
if, are you ready? You think you're ready to race?
I mean, I'm certainly going to be in a more fortunate position than most because, as I said, I've got 2 days coming up now. What do I have? I got two days coming up now in Cremona. Then I've got 1.5 days in Misano. I hope that I'm going to have 3 more days at the end of the month in Misano as well. And then potentially, then we go to Jerez. So I feel that I'm ready. Not a lot of people are in that fortunate position. So I think that it would be nice if we had a bit like they're proposing for the MotoGP, really. If we had maybe, three 20-minute sessions, before we got into a weekend, just to do it. Because also I know that some teams and some riders didn't turn up at the test back in March.
Yeah, it was Simoncelli's team, Paolo Simoncelli's team.
So I think that if the other guys can request a little bit of track time before they go into a GP, I think that we're in a fortunate position to be able to do the same. But much, we're going to be riding on the same track that we rode 3 months ago, with the same bikes, with the same tires, with the same setups. We don't have a lot of track time anyway on these bikes, so yeah, why not? Like, let's just, the variables are very small, so it's a case of if we can get maybe a couple of sessions more than what we would have on a normal weekend, I feel that we're ready to go, and we're ready to start the championship. I think the most important thing at this point is just making sure that the mechanics are kind of back up to working with the bike. They're back, back used to working under the pressure, quickly, responsively, doing their safety checks and all that type of stuff. I think that is something that's important. But in terms of the riders, yeah, if we can get 10-15 laps of practice, and a little bit more than what we would get normally, then we're ready to start this championship.
Perfect. That's perfect answer as usual. No, I'm joking. Bradley, thank you so much for being with us with the podcast, and hopefully, I know that the preamble will come true, and you actually be able to get on track as soon as possible for Moto E. Fingers crossed. And I wish you a lovely rest of the week. And again, thank you for joining the podcast.
No worries. Thanks for having me, and hope to see you soon.
See you soon. And that's it for the 10th episode of the Energica Electrifying Podcast. Thank you once again for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this week's show. Check out our social media profiles and pages on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn, so you won't miss any of the content we release on a daily basis. We wish you a wonderful weekend, and we hope you'll be back with us next week.